Hello and welcome into Loftside Banter. I'm here to tell you that this season, for flu season and everything else starting off here in New England, has been brutal towards me. And it's one of the reasons why we didn't get a show in last week. And it's been tough. I'm a little congested still right now. I have a massive headache. But we're going to get out a show here today, talk about week 7 in the NFL. We'll look back at some of the stuff as well to try and catch up. We're going to look at Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about the start of the NHL season, and we're going to talk about probably a little bit of the NBA. We're probably going to touch on it very briefly just because it's getting close to the opening, and we're going to have a special for that and stuff like that. So there's a lot happening, obviously, in sports. This is one of the better times in sports because you're in the heart of the NFL season. You're in the heart of college football. We're getting to the World Series. We already have one team in there. We have NHL season just dropped the puck. I almost said kicked off. It wouldn't sound right. And from here, we get the NBA tip-off coming up in the next few days or the next week or so, as you can hear. So the NFL, we're in week 7, and we're going to dive into the Patriots quite a bit because the national media has already crowned the Patriots and have said great things about the Patriots. They're on a 3-game win streak. Drake May looks excellent, and the team has a favorable schedule going forward. I, being a Patriots fan, I'm going to give you all the information that I have from these national media and local media and everything else like that because it is overflowing on the positive side. And I'm glad that it is, and I really hope it continues. And I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to continue, especially for what they have on their schedule. But I want to pump the brakes a tad bit, because as I've watched these games and everything else like that, I have noticed a few things from my perspective that I think people aren't taking into consideration out in the national media and everything else like that. Now, again, I want the New England Patriots to win every single game that they ever play. And I went to 2 games this year, and out of their 2 losses, I saw them. So it's not exactly flawless yet. And from where the New England Patriots fan base has seen over the past decade, 2 decades, to where we are now, it is looking like something we've seen before. And you can tell by kind of the smile on my face, and I have a little pep in my step and everything else like that. The Patriots have looked really good. Cut down on mistakes. They have started to buy into Mike Vrabel's system. They have dealt with their defensive coordinator being diagnosed with cancer and having to go to a backup play caller and everything else like that. So we're at a point where they've gone through some of these things and they've had some hurdles to get over and everything else like that. But where they are right now looks good. They're in first place in the AFC East. And they're technically tied, but they had the tiebreaker with the Bills. They beat the Bills, obviously, last week or 2 weeks ago on the 5th. And this team has a bunch of players on it that were overlooked. They have a bunch of players that had to step in as far as rookies and everything else like that. And I had said I thought that they had a positive offseason, and I thought that they had added some of the right pieces and everything else like that. But what they have right now is a defense that's improving, a quarterback that is young, is not making mistakes. He is making plays that we see the top tier quarterbacks in this league make, especially against the Bills. Josh Allen makes the plays that Drake May has been making. Lamar Jackson makes the plays that Drake May has been making. Patrick Mahomes, maybe not this season. He's been a little... We'll get into the Chiefs in a little bit. And we've seen Patrick Mahomes make moves to extend plays, make throws that we thought he was dead in the water with, and everything else like that. So with this team and all the great things that we've seen. So again, if we go through, they're 4-2, top of the AFC East. They lost to the Las Vegas Raiders at home. That was a tough loss but again, first game of the year, new coaching staff and everything else like that, trying to put the best product out there and not make mistakes and everything else. I can understand a loss like that. They come out against a team against Miami, who on paper has far more talent than you in various skill positions, and you win that game. Now, you tried to give that game away. You did. The Pittsburgh Steelers, their 5-turnover game. You don't win games, 5 turnovers. But again, you were going to blow them out. You were going to blow out the Pittsburgh Steelers if you could have put together the drives and not had fumbles and interceptions. They come out the next week against Carolina, destroy the Carolina Panthers, which Carolina has looked good over the last couple of weeks. So maybe not a, hey, you played a bad team and you really beat them badly type game. You're playing a team that has won 2 games on the bounce right now and has looked a little bit better since that. So that was their wake-up game. The Panthers was their wake-up game. You went on a primetime game against the Bills at their stadium, and you beat them. And looked really good doing it. And then you came and you just went on the road and beat the Saints in New Orleans, a team that doesn't look as bad as their record suggests, because Spencer Rattler had looked really good. The team is going to be scrappy. The Saints are going to be scrappy throughout the rest of the season and may not actually be the worst team put together. You know, you're looking at teams like the Jets and everything else like that who are just struggling on every facet that they possibly can. The Saints have looked all right against opponents. I mean, they looked all right against the Bills as well. But they're bad teams. So, I mean, they're not going to get those plays that help you win close games. So, okay, you beat them. Now, this week, they obviously go out and play Tennessee. Mike Vrabel's old stomping grounds as far as a head coach is concerned. He's going to want to win that game. But you have Drake May, like I said, making those plays that you see the top-tier quarterbacks in this league make. And with this comes improvement from your offensive line. You have a rookie left tackle that still makes a few mistakes here and there, but he's getting better game by game. You have a rookie left guard that even sat out a game, and you had a backup center play left guard and play pretty well. I'm gonna tell you now, offensive line wise, Ben Brown. I've liked Ben Brown for the last 2 years. Ben Brown came in as your 4th string center last year, started half the games or more, and then stepped in at left guard over the last game and looked really good. I believe it was against Carolina he started and looked pretty good. I like Ben Brown. I think Ben Brown has a good chance of being a good interior offensive lineman, whether it's be for the Patriots or whoever. But he looks pretty good. Garrett Bradbury came in having a down year for Minnesota, has played pretty well. And then you stuck Morgan Moses over on the right tackle side. Again, that's the veteran you kind of needed on that offensive line. They've looked better. They've looked a lot better. The one thing with this team that nobody is, I mean, it's being talked about, but not a lot, is their running game sucks. You're not getting the explosiveness out of Travion Henderson. You're not getting consistency from Ramondre Stevenson, and he still has fumble troubles. Antonio Gibson's done for the year. Now you're turning to Terrell Jennings, who's been on your practice squad for 2 years, and we can see what he brings to the table. But there's a point where this team has to be able to run the football and get a 100-yard rusher somewhere along the line. You're not going to get a 1,000-yard rusher. Right now, you're running by committee. Travion Henderson, who had a huge following coming off the preseason, where the first time he touched the ball, he scored a touchdown on a kickoff. And from there, we're talking about consistently getting 4 to 5 yards a carry, consistently getting 100 yards rushing, whether it's by committee or one of them. These things need to improve so that way we're not relying completely on Drake May, because Drake May has reached a point where he's not making those stupid mistakes. He's starting to understand that not everything has to be done every play. So, with the New England Patriots playing this well, Tennessee next at Tennessee, Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons after that, both Browns at home, Falcons at home, winnable games. At Tampa Bay, that's a very tough one right now. Extremely tough game right now. Home for the New York Jets. There's no reason you lose to the New York Jets. You shouldn't lose to the New York Jets. I don't care if we're talking about, oh, you just had a bad game or whatever. At Cincinnati, that is a very tough game right now with Joe Flacco in the fold. We saw what Joe Flacco could do Thursday night against the Steelers. He looked like the Joe Flacco of old. So here we are. Now, you're talking about a tough game there. The Giants at home, you're not going to have a walkover game for the New York Giants. Jackson Dart has taken over the starter. He's going to continue to improve. I said he was probably the best drafted quarterback out of that draft. Cam Ward still has some work to do. And you know, again, we get into all that before. I just think Jackson Dart is the most NFL ready right now. You have your bye week in week 14, which is great because late season you get guys back. At home against Buffalo, if you think you're going to have the same type of game and Buffalo's not going to come out firing, you're probably playing for the division in that week, right then and there, because Buffalo's lost 2 in a row. At Baltimore, yes, Baltimore is 1-5. When Lamar Jackson comes back and injuries start to come back for Baltimore, they're going to be a dangerous team. Now, whether they make the playoffs or not, or how far back they are, is irrelevant. They're going to play spoiler to you in late December if everybody's back. At the New York Jets, and then Miami at home. Miami has typically a tough time in cold weather. To me, if I'm looking at this at 4-2, I think you beat the Titans and the Browns. I think you split the Falcons and the Bucks. I think let's say they win against the Falcons, and then you lose to the Bucks. So now you're talking about 7-3. Jets make you 8-3. I say you lose to Cincinnati on the road. I think you lose to Cincinnati on the road. So you're 8-4, 9-4 with a win against the Giants. I think you lose to Buffalo at home. 9-5. I think you lose to the Ravens. You're 9-6, 10-6. I think you probably go 10-7. I'm going to say they lose to the Dolphins just because I think there's still some question marks on this team. If you would have told me going into this season, the improvements that were being made by week 6, and then by the end of the season you'd be 10-7, and you'd have a chance at the playoffs, I'd be ecstatic at that as a Patriots fan. So, 11-6, 10-7 is a great record for a team that you were starting from the very beginning again. Hey, Drake May had looked all right, was making mistakes last year. You started the year with a loss to the Raiders, and then you had 5 turnovers against the Steelers, and then you tell me they're 11-7 or 11-6 or 10-7 at the end of the year. I love that. I love the fact that where the improvement has come. They need to continue doing that. If they can continue to do that, find a running game, they're a legitimate playoff contender. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're a Super Bowl contender, because I don't think they are yet. But this team has gone 11-6, 10-7, whatever, and they still have the most cap room going into next year. We're talking about coming up to a trade deadline where they could go out and ask about an Alvin Kamara or Chris Olave from New Orleans, A.J. Brown from Philadelphia. They could look at the Jets and try to get something there. It'll never happen. If I'm this team, don't go trading away future assets quite yet. Keep them. You still have a boatload of money to spend in the offseason. You still have great draft capital right now. I'm going to try to see what they have. You still have your draft capital. You still have all that money. Play with what you have right now. Don't think that you need to throw it all in and go all in this year. You're going to have time to build this team to what you want and get the guys that you want and replace a few guys that you had on contract this year. I think they did a great job at getting out guys that they didn't need. Cole Strange, gone. Jabril Peppers, weird move at the time that they did it. Now looks fine. Looking at last year's draft, Jalen Polk is gone. Caden Wallace is still in the league. He is still on the roster. Layden Robinson is not on a roster, so he's gone. So let's just take a look at last year. Javon Baker is gone. Marcellus Dial, I believe, is still on the Patriots, but he's injured. Joe Milton's obviously in Dallas right now. Jaheim Bell is not on a roster right now. Jake Andrews gone. Chad Ryland gone. Sidney So is gone. Antonio Malfi is gone. Amir Speed is gone. He's on the... Where is he now? Chicago? Or he was on Chicago last year. Isaiah Bolton, gone. Cole Strange, gone. Tyreek Thornton, gone. Jack Jones, gone. Pierre Strong, gone. Bailey Zappi, gone. Kevin Harris, gone. Sam Roberts, gone. Chasen Hines, gone. Andrew Stuber, gone. So that's from 2024 to 2022. So just in those drafts, they got we have everybody that's gone off of this. So obviously we know that the Patriots haven't been drafting well. Now, if you look at this season, Will Campbell, again, improving quite a bit. Trayvon Henderson looks pretty good. Obviously needs to get his yards per carry up. Kyle Williams has been almost a non-factor right now. 2 receptions, 20 yards. And again, it's hard for him to break in with the guys that have been improving. You have Stephon Diggs here. You have Kayshon Boutte, who's looked really good. So you still have a Kyle Williams who can produce. And again, I wasn't sold on him coming out of the draft. And even when I said I thought he was one of the weaker wide receiver options, and we haven't seen a ton of great wide receiver rookies this year. There's a few. Don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think that I don't think any of the wide receivers have looked good. But, I'm thinking of the guys from Iowa State, Jalen Noel and Higgins. Meh. Okay, meh. Jared Wilson, starting left guard. 3rd round pick. Craig Woodson, your starting safety, 4th round pick. Joshua Farmer, a whole bunch of time. He's played in all 6 games. Defensive tackle. 4th round pick. Braden Swinson is the only one in the 5th round that hasn't really contributed in any way, shape, or form because he's on the practice squad. And I think it's just because there's just so much depth in that defensive line that they like a little bit more. I think he's going to get his chance. I think it's great that he's on the practice squad and that, for as talented as he was in college, I think he's going to develop fine. Andrew Borgell is shaky at the beginning. Now is starting to be more consistent. That's your 6th round pick. Marcus Bryant, surprise guy that wasn't really on a lot of people's boards. 7th round pick, has played in all 6 games. Has provided depth for you on that swing tackle position. Julian Ashby, long snapper. Okay, fine. Playing in all 6 games. And then Kobe Minor has been elevated twice from the practice squad. 7th round pick. Mr. Irrelevant there. The draft this year looks phenomenal. And that's what we've been missing here in New England. You're getting guys, or you had been getting guys that were just not putting together anything, or not developing, or not great. And I'm not blaming Belichick for that. I'm not going to blame anything like that. He had been pretty good at developing some of these players that you didn't think were a great addition to this team. And it hadn't worked out for a while. Because I'm even looking back at 2021. Christian Barmore and Ramondre Stevenson are the 2 guys that are left here. 2020, Kyle Duggar, Anthony Jennings. That's it. Michael Owino is still here. 2019, nobody left on this roster. 2018, nobody left on this roster. Almost nobody left in the league. Year 2017, we had almost no picks whatsoever. We had 4 total. Yeah, so I mean, what you're looking at is they drafted well. I'm trying to look at last year, too. Last year, I mean, is Drake May. That's what you got out of it. And that's great because you were offered a bunch of picks from the Vikings to come up and take Drake May, and you held your ground. And you said, you know what? We could have gotten a haul. We could have been better in filling some positions. But even with all the guys that they did pick, Drake May is the guy that you picked up. Jalen Polk is now in New Orleans. Caden Wallace is around. Layden Robinson's not even on a roster. Javon Baker's not even on a roster anymore. I believe he was just cut from the practice squad from the Eagles. Joe Milton, again, okay, he had a great game. And again, Joe Milton was Joe Milton. He was going to come in and be flashy against backups, and we all knew that. And then Jaheim Bell, I believe, was also cut from the Eagles practice squad. So, again, we're talking about a failure to get young talent that can develop and put in the work ethic that we're looking at. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know what Caden Wallace's work ethic is comparative to the next guy that was picked or the one before him or whatever. This offensive line sucked last year. And this year, they've put in guys, again, you're talking about a third-round offensive center that's playing left guard and playing pretty well. I just don't want people to get ahead of it. I don't want people to think right now that we're this far ahead and we're this good and the Patriots are unstoppable and everything else. There are holes. The pass defense hasn't looked great. Christian Gonzalez was out for a few weeks. I understand that. The thing that this team needs is to be able to play better against the pass, not take stupid penalties at stupid times, and run the football better. Those are 2 massive things that they still need to improve on. The fact that Josh Allen played okay against you, but made more of the mistakes was huge. So, the other thing that everybody needs to understand with the New England Patriots right now is who you've played so far has not been the greatest of teams. Now, you can only beat who they put in front of you. You can only play who they put in front of you. That is an argument that I will stand on no matter what team we're talking about. Oh, they haven't played anybody good. You beat who they tell you have to play. But they haven't done this against very good teams. Buffalo is the only exception, really, right now, to the rule. Raiders, not great. Dolphins, not great. Steelers, we don't know who the Steelers are. And I don't think we're ever going to find out. I realize I've said on this show, we know by week 4 kind of who you are. I don't know who the Steelers are. I still don't. They've looked good. They've looked better than I thought they would. Aaron Rodgers, I give him all the credit in the world, still has a cannon for an arm. He threw a ball Thursday night, almost 70 yards. I believe they measured it 69.8 yards on a Hail Mary in the air. I mean, I still give him credit. I still give Joe Flacco credit for as well as he played the other night. Now that he has some legitimate weapons and everything else like that. But the Panthers weren't great. They're starting to look better, but they weren't great. Buffalo, okay, there's your litmus test kind of look at the Patriots. You're not that far off from Buffalo. I still don't think you're better than Buffalo. I think Buffalo is still a better complete team right now. But some of these guys, that are in these positions starting and filling in and coming in rotations and everything else like that. And that's kind of the Woodson and the Farmers and the Jared Wilsons and, Keyshawn Booty starting to play a lot better. This team has a very, 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 very bright future ahead of them. If people can stay healthy, they can stop making mistakes, and they can get out of their own head. Because I've seen good players get in their head. I thought Mac Jones was going to be a good quarterback, and then he lost confidence and lost the confidence of the coaching staff around him, apparently, here in New England. And the fact that we've moved on from arguably the greatest coach in history, gone through a Gerard Mayo season that was tumultuous at best, because I don't know how they still beat the Bengals week 1 last year. I don't know. But from there, to get Mike Vrabel to put a system in, to really coach up the young players and to put them into positions and go, hey, we put trust in you and we understand this. This team has a very bright future. Just need to not lose it mentally and don't make those small mistakes. If you can do that, you are a great team. You're not great yet, but you're on that road, and it's exciting. It's very exciting here in New England. For a team that's used to winning over the last 25 years, and to go through the 2 years, like I said, I don't want a 20-year rebuild. I don't want to be the Cleveland Browns. I don't want to be the Giants that have struggled to get back to relevance, even though they're in New York. I don't want to be the Jets. I don't want to be these teams that keep plugging in new players and they just don't work out. But I'm happy for where they are. So with that, we'll go into our Week 7 preview. As my nose gets more and more stuffy. Sorry. Probably edit that part out. Patriots play the Titans in Tennessee. Third straight road game. They're 6.5-point favorites. Drake May, like I've said, is 131 and 179, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 1,500 yards passing. He's been playing excellent. He's starting to get chemistry with Stephon Diggs. But again, the run game, Ramondre Stevenson, 51 carries, 157 yards through 6 games is awful. Awful. It's terrible. And it's not necessarily Ramondre's. But the fact of the matter is, each time against the Saints late in the game, trying to get a few yards, you'd hand the ball off and I'd see them get tackled in the backfield. Tennessee just lost to the Raiders. They did beat the Arizona Cardinals. Just going to make that little notion there because of my call with the Arizona Cardinals. Again, we'll get into it. But they've lost 4 of the last 5. Obviously, they're 1-5. Cam Ward has started to make more and more mistakes as they've kind of gone along. And again, not saying he's not going to be a great quarterback in this league, but again, we're talking about next year. We're talking about next year with Tennessee. They're probably going to be in that discussion for the first overall pick again. It's going to be the Jets, Saints, and Tennessee, somewhere in there. But I think this team has every ability to beat this team, and you can't be complacent in this, and Mike Vrabel's not going to let him be complacent against the Titans. So I think the Patriots take this one pretty handily. And then let's go over to the next London game, which has the Las Vegas Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars playing over in London early tomorrow. Jacksonville and Indianapolis are running that in AFC South. There's about a 4-way tie for the NFC West. San Francisco, Seattle, and Los Angeles are all 4-2. I find this to be a very close game. It's going to be a lot closer than what people think. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites. I think the Rams still take it. I think they're still more of a complete team than the Jaguars, but we're starting to see the Jaguars play better and better and better, which is what you wanted to see finally from Jacksonville. Though they did lose to Seattle last week, They did beat Kansas City before that. And again, who are the Chiefs right now? And we'll get into them when they come up. But Puka Nacua is out. So maybe there's a chance that Jacksonville can take this game because the offense slows down from LA. But Kansas City and the Las Vegas Raiders. Kansas City. They lose to Philadelphia by 3. They beat the Giants. Not a surprise. They beat a down Baltimore team this year. They lose by 3 to Jacksonville. And then they come out and they really beat the Lions pretty badly. Almost a 2-touchdown game. I think the 30-17, I believe the score was. So who's Kansas City this year? Who is going to step out on the field week in and week out? Outside of Pittsburgh, Kansas City's the same sort of way. They're not really showing us any consistency, one way or the other, bad or good. Fortunately for Kansas City, the Chargers, who had a great start to the season, have faltered recently over the last couple of games. Denver has looked better as their defense has started to step up. But Kansas City is in a kind of this middle ground. They're going to trot out one week, destroy you, and trot out the next week and have no clue what they're doing. It's hard to sit here and say that a Patrick Mahomes team doesn't know what they're doing, but it sometimes looks that way. Now they've played more consistently as players have come back. We have Rasheen Rice coming back, hopefully, I think. But they're 10.5-point favorites, so I don't think there's any chance that the Raiders take this game in any way, shape, or form. So you can take Kansas City with that. Cleveland Browns are 2.5-point favorites. They're both 1-5, them and the Miami Dolphins. That's who they're playing. And fortunately for the Patriots and the Bills, you have two teams in this AFC East that are down very bad. The Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins' only win this year came against the New York Jets. They lost the game that they thought they had against the Panthers, and then they lost another close game to the Chargers this past week. On the other side, Cleveland, you have Quinshon Judkins, who's looked really good. Harold Fannin Jr., another rookie. Again, this team, this Browns team, you're getting a lot of your draft picks playing a lot of minutes, making a lot of plays. Even just looking at their season leaders, Dylan Gabriel, 51 of 89, 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. 430 yards. Now, again, he didn't start. Obviously, Joe Flacco started before that. They made the move. Quinshon Judkins, second-round pick. 84 carries, 383 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rookie. Harold Fannin Jr., their new tight end, 28 catches, 254 yards, touchdown. Rookie. Carson Schwizinger, linebacker out of UCLA. Rookie, leads the team in tackles. 4 out of the 5 categories that I'm looking at, you have rookies leading. That's what you want to see from a team like the Cleveland Browns at this point. They haven't been able to find rookies that have been able to lead all these different things. Now, they got to continue to develop. As I've said, development has slowed in the NFL. This team has the pieces that are starting to come in place. I think the Cleveland Browns over the next couple of years are going to be at the top of the division. Just not this year. Just not yet. And I know every Cleveland fan says that. Well, when is yet? When does yet come? I'm going to tell you it's probably the next couple of years. They can keep these pieces in place and they can keep improving. You're going to have a team. Is Dylan Gabriel the guy? I'm not quite sure quite yet. Now, he hasn't made mistakes yet, but he has not had the greatest games that we've seen so far. And you got to give him time. And you got to stop pushing for sure. But But you do have Shador there. Should you need to make a replacement? It's going to be, I think it's going to be one of the two of them that's going to be the leader of this team. I don't think they need to go out and draft another one quite yet. I think we're at a point where you got to have a veteran somewhere in there. I think they're going to go out and try to find a veteran next year to work with both of them, kind of be the third string guy, if you will. Guy that's, towards the end of his career, whatever. But this is where we're at. I'm going to take the Browns over the Dolphins. I think this is one of their improvement games. I think this is one of their games that you see the improvement and they put it all together and they get a win. Whether it's by a point, whatever it is, a win's a win. So that's where they're going to be at. Now, the Carolina Panthers are going on the road against the Jets. The Jets are 1.5 point favorites. I'm going to take the Panthers. I don't think we're still at that point yet with the Jets, which worries me because they're coming up against the Patriots, and I don't want one of those first wins to come against the Patriots. But Justin Fields has not thrown any interceptions, but boy, he had negative 10 net passing yards last week, which is pathetic. Pathetic. For an NFL team to put together a game plan that got you negative net 10 passing yards. Garrett Wilson's doubtful for this game on my fantasy team, so it doesn't help me any. Bryce Young looking a little better. The wake-up call against the Patriots. You got your... How do I want to word it? Because you were destroyed by the Patriots. Destroyed's fine. I think we're going to go with that. You got destroyed by the Patriots. You've now found Rico Dowdle, was your backup to start off with, has looked phenomenal over the last 2 games. Also on my fantasy team. Chet McMillan was an early candidate for Rookie of the Year. Still playing fairly well. They're not getting to the quarterback all that much. Their leader in sacks has 1. So I'm gonna take the Panthers on the road here. I think the Jets, and we're going to take a look at the Jets and who they got coming up. You have the Bengals after that, at the Bengals, and then you have the Browns, and then you're at the Patriots. I think within those next 4 games, you get your first win. Excuse me. Don't let it be the Patriots. Saints and Bears. Saints are going on the road, and the Bears are 5.5 point favorites. Excuse me. Caleb is starting to look better. They've won 3 in a row, I believe. Let's just take a look. Yes, they've won 3 in a row. Dallas, Las Vegas, and they beat the Commanders this past week by a point. They actually won back-to-back games 25-24, which is interesting. But Ben Johnson is starting to put together a good team. They're starting to keep Caleb upright. He's starting to make the right decisions. I think all of the stuff early on where we talked about Caleb Williams possibly not being the guy, he's kind of turned that around a little bit. Now we're still in that kind of flux area. And I'm not saying that they're really going to come out, because I don't think they're going to blow out the Saints by any means. Spencer Rattler has proven that he can be an NFL quarterback. Now, is he the greatest NFL quarterback? And if he's starting for your team, are you happy? No, not as of now. But he's not making mistakes where we saw a lot of it last year. 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. So again, he's not throwing the ball away. He had a great first pass against the Patriots. I think it was a 53-yard gain or whatever it was. And he was getting the ball out, getting the offense up and down the field. They were getting field goals and keeping it close. For a game that people looked at and went, oh, the Patriots just beat the Bills. Oh, they just blew out the Panthers. Oh, the Saints are in trouble. No, the Saints have battled and battled and battled. And that's always been kind of a Saints team, is they always battle. Now, when you don't have the talent level of being a top-tier team, yes, those things go against you. Penalties will go against you, mistakes, everything else like that. But this has competed. 25-19 loss to the Patriots last week. They beat the Giants. 31 which was not what I think covered for that one. Seattle blew them out. And then the San Francisco 49ers only a 5-point loss. Injuries and stuff like that have kicked in for the Saints as well. I do think the Bears take this game. The Philadelphia Eagles go on the road to play the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles have lost 2 straight, Denver and the New York Giants. So the defense on this Eagles team, as I've mentioned, has not been very good comparative to what they were last year. Now, you still have the Minnesota Vikings playing with Carson Wentz. And the Eagles are 1.5 favorite. I think you take that all day long. Even on the road. I don't think the Eagles are going to let Carson Wentz do the things that Carson Wentz has been able to do over the last few games. 69 of 100, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Carson Wentz, 759 yards. Jalen Hurts needs to find a way to pass the ball better. Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl winning quarterback that is struggling to get 100 yards passing some of these games. You're putting a lot of pressure on Saquon Barkley. Teams are making Jalen Hurts beat them, and he's not able to do it so far early in this season. Not sure why. But again, a Super Bowl winning team, you get picked apart. Injuries also happen. Injuries have also been something that has hurt this team as far as offensive line and stuff like that. Landon Dickerson still questionable to play. Jalen Carter is also still questionable to play. That's a big loss on that defense, and he's still on the roster. The Vikings, obviously, Aaron Jones has been out for a while. Justin Jefferson is still, he has 29 receptions, but Carson Wentz is not the guy that he used to be. So what mistakes will he make this time around? Will he put everybody on his shoulder and try to win this game by himself? I think the Eagles, you take the 1.5. The Minnesota defense is where it's been at. They've only given up 97 points so far this season. Ivan Pace Jr. has played fairly well in linebacker. Some injuries on that side. Blake Cashman is still out. Michael Juergens is still questionable. And Brian O'Neill is still questionable as well. So, and then Andrew Van Ginkel is still out, who's the starting middle linebacker for them. But moving into the 4 o'clock games, the Colts are going on the road to face the Chargers. This is a very fun game. Both of these teams have looked really good early on. The injuries to the running backs for the Chargers have been a huge, huge hurdle for them. Obviously, with a system under Jim Harbaugh, running the football is a must. Now you're talking about being on your 3rd string running back. Justin Herbert has looked more human over the last couple of games where he started the season very, very well. Daniel Jones still passing over 1,500 yards passing. He's probably your comeback player of the year no matter what. Jonathan Taylor still looking excellent as far as the Jonathan Taylor that we remember. A couple of injuries are out. Charvarius Ward, Josh Downs, and Austin Doolin are all out as far as the Indianapolis Colts. Again, like I mentioned on the other side, you're missing Khalil Mack still. You're still missing Denzel Perryman. But the Chargers at least got back to the winning ways after losing to the Giants and then losing to the Washington Commanders. They beat the Dolphins 29-27. The Chargers are a 1.5 favorite. I'm going to take them with the points at home against the Colts. I think the defense has played a little better as of recently. Indianapolis, having scored 194 points so far, I think they're going to come back down to earth on the road here. That's what I'm going to go with there. My next 4 o'clock game is those Giants at 2-4 against the Denver Broncos. Now, the Cam Scatterbro game, this past game where he kind of broke out, was fantastic against the Eagles. He was running people over. He was making it look like he was just a human wrecking ball. And this guy, we saw this all in college. This wasn't a surprise. The reason why he fell to where he did in the draft, I don't know. But the Giants picking him up and making him the starter now is phenomenal. 82 carries, 5 touchdowns, 338 yards. Obviously, Jackson Dart is the starter, and Jackson Dart's going to have up and down probably the rest of the year. But again, if you can see little improvements, and Jackson Dart looked pretty good. They're still 2-4. They're still at the bottom. The defense hasn't been playing very well. The defensive line has not looked as good as we thought it would. And then the Denver Broncos at 4-2 are 7.5-point favorites. I might take the Giants with the points. I don't think they're going to win outright. I think this is going to be a closer game than what we think. Bo Nix has started to play better. Maybe not in a sophomore slump. Maybe in a sophomore slump lasted the first kind of quarter of the season. But he started to play a little better. J.K. Dobbins has been playing better. I'm going to take the Giants plus 7.5 because I think it's going to be closer than that. I don't think they're going to win. I think it's going to be closer than 7.5. They may lose by a touchdown. That's still a win. Next is the Green Bay Packers, who are 3-1-1, which is very annoying. The tie thing needs to stop, and I understand the point of it. I think they need to go to the college system. I do. I think they need to go to the college system and win games that way. The ties in football, just in American football, are not worth it. Packers are minus 6.5. I'm going to take the Packers. Kyler Murray is questionable, but Josh Jacobs still questionable. Jordan Love and this Green Bay team looked unstoppable the first few games and have kind of faltered since then. Obviously losing to the Browns, tying Dallas, but coming out and beating the Cincinnati Bengals 27-18 in Flacco's first game. After the 2 wins for the Cardinals, and I said at the beginning of the year, the Cardinals were going to be in a precarious position at the end of the year, especially with their coach, who's been under some controversy ever since he's basically told, got in somebody's face and put his hands on, whatever running back or whoever it was on the sideline for making a dumb mistake. It was an absolutely dumb mistake. But they've lost 4 straight. San Francisco, Seattle, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. They've lost all of them. Now, they've been close games, 16-15, 23-20, 22-21, 31-27. So, again, they're not getting blown out by any means. They're still kind of right there. But we're talking about a team that is making mistakes, mental mistakes, that are giving away the game. That comes down to coaching. As I said, I didn't value Jonathan Gannon all that much as a head coach. Not that I think he's a bad coach. I just think the things that I'm seeing from that team, it was tough. And mental mistakes, like dropping the ball at the 1-yard line or losing close games like this, comes down to the mental mistakes and the making the plays when you need to. And that comes down to coaching. Next, we have the Washington Commanders on the road to play the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys offense is phenomenal. Dak Prescott has looked at 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. People have talked about him for MVP and all those fun things. George Pickens, 32 receptions, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels back from injury. Obviously, they have Krosky Merritt as their 7th-round pick, being their lead back right now. But they did lose to the Bears last week. But the Carolina Panthers also beat the Dallas Cowboys last week. The Dallas Cowboys defense is, I don't know if it's on pace to be historically bad, but it looks historically bad. If you know what I mean, it may not have the numbers there to back it up, but it looks historically bad. It looks like ones when they go, you don't want a defense like this. They should show this year's Dallas Cowboys defense and how bad it's looked in a lot of these situations. And I think they were leaning on a lot of players recently, over the last recent kind of years, that played above what they kind of needed to, and they had better players in certain positions to make them not look as bad. Like, the guy I'm thinking of is Stefan's brother. What the hell is his name? Trevion. Now, Trevion's out, so I can't really use him as the example. I'm going to anyway, just because I've already said it. But, he had all these great interceptions, or he had these high interception numbers, but he was never a shutdown corner. It was never, nobody ever went, Trevion Diggs is the shutdown corner that you saw, like Darrelle Revis and all that. He wasn't in that category. He was just at the right place at the right time, made picks. And again, making interceptions, but doesn't make you a shutdown corner. That means they're throwing at you probably more often. The Washington Commanders are 2.5-point favorites. I'm going to take them. I think the offense for Washington is going to be able to put up some points. I'm going to go with at least 28 points. San Francisco 49ers are 3.5-point favorites against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm trying to see if I can find if Brock Purdy is going to play this week. San Francisco 49ers. Let's take a look and see if we get ourselves the Brock Purdy. He is out. So he's ruled out. So you have Mac Jones again. And, it could be worse. It could be worse. Mac Jones, 113 for 168, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,252 yards. That's not bad. For what we've seen from Mac Jones over the last few years, that's not bad. Now he has better weapons and everything else, as we've said. Great. He's showing that he can play with those types of weapons. Christian McCaffrey still healthy, which is great. Leads the team in rushing and receiving yards, which is part of the problem. Fred Warner is out, which is huge right now for that San Francisco defense. They're starting to get into that injury, where they were before, but they are winning. They are the top of the division. They're 3 points. They've given up 3 more points than they've scored, which is a problem. But they are in first place right now. Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, all healthy. I'm going to take Atlanta on the road as dogs to win outright this week. Again, it has nothing to do with the Mac Jones thing or anything else like that. They're more healthy. They're more ready to go. You now lost your defensive leader. You don't have Nick Bosa. You don't have any of those players. I just think this is where it keeps up. And this is a Sunday night game, so we're going to be able to all watch that and stuff like that. The 2 Monday night games are a little fascinating. You have the 5-1 Buccaneers, who are probably on a lot of power rankings lists right now as number 1. They finally won a game where they weren't losing or weren't tied at the end. They won a game outright. And then you have the Detroit Lions, who just lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now, Detroit is 5.5-point favorites. Tampa Bay, top of the NFC South. They're probably going to win the NFC South. Detroit is behind the Green Bay Packers by a half game because of that tie. 191 scored points right now for Detroit. I think Detroit wins this game. There's a lot of question marks. Bucky Irving's out. Emeka Ibuka, who's also top of the Rookie of the Year kind of standings right now, out. Chris Godwin out. Mike Evans questionable. Now, the wide receiver depth that they've had has been great for them to keep winning. But I think Detroit wins this one at home. And that's the first Monday night game at 7 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, you have the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites, and I'll take them with that at home. We're still trying to figure out what the Houston Texans are because they looked horrible. Now, let me rephrase. They're losing close games early on. They were 0-3. 17-10, 20-19, and 14-9. 14-9 to the Rams. Tampa Bay won 20-19, and then Jacksonville beat them 17-10. Then they went and shut out Tennessee, which seemed to be a good jumpstart because against a very down Baltimore team, they beat them by 34 points, which is not something that I was expecting. But Sam Darnold still playing fairly well, 1,500 yards passing with 11 touchdowns so far this year. Jackson Smith-Njigba has been phenomenal, probably put himself in the conversation of a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the league right now, at least by the way he's playing. But that's kind of what we have for week 7 in the NFL. We'll revisit that early next week. Hopefully the sniffles and headache and everything else that I have going on is subsided so I can get everything put together. Just some breaking news now. Evans and Ibuka are going to be game time decisions. So we're not going to know right up until Monday until whether they're going to play or not. For Major League Baseball, we have one team in the World Series, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And as I said, even though they didn't have the regular season, what everybody was saying, they had struggled in the end of the regular season. They almost didn't win their division. They have blown through the playoffs to get to the World Series again. They just swept the Brewers. Now, I really like the Brewers. I think they're probably my second favorite team behind the Red Sox. I love the MB kind of glove logo. I think it's as classic as a classic logo can get. I think it's perfect. I love that it's the Brewers are, hey, we're known for beer. Baseball team. I was really hoping they win the series, but it was not close. I believe the Brewers scored 1 run in each of those 4 games. And then Shohei Ohtani hit a 3-run homer and then pitched 6 2/3 innings. He is just phenomenal. And he's reached that superstar status as far as where he is worldwide and everything else like that. The Dodgers are in there. The Mariners are 1 win away after winning last night. They were trailing 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th. They end up going to win 6-2. Cal Raleigh, big number, tied the score, and then a grand slam to put them up 6-2. So the Mariners are 1 win away against Toronto. Now, if I'm looking at, let's see, when's the next game? Is tomorrow night. They are, I want to say they're in Seattle. No, they're in Toronto. So the next 2 games are in Toronto. Three to 1, they lost. So they were down 2-0, the Toronto Blue Jays. They came back and won the next 2, 13-4 and 8-2. So they were starting to put together a really hot offense. They kind of got stymied last week. But undecided, Seattle has not named their starter. Oh, I'm going to butcher this Toronto player's name. I'm looking at it right now, and I know I'm going to butcher it. Trey Yesavage. Yesavage. I'm going to go Trey Yesavage because it sounds cool. Now, Trey Yesavage this year had pitched in 3 games, 14 total innings, and he's pitching in a deciding game, which we've seen that quite a bit this year, which is interesting to me. Now, injuries obviously happen throughout seasons and stuff like that. But with Toronto right now, what offense they had been putting together, they need to find it again, and they need to get on the board early. Now, whereas we don't know who Seattle's going to pick to start the game quite yet, they need to give that run support to Yesavage, or else they're going to be in a lot of trouble. You can't put the pressure on yourself to be down with a young pitcher, because the young pitcher is going to have to go out. So far in the postseason, Yesavage is 1-1 with a 4.8 ERA. So again, he's giving up almost 5 runs a game on average. 15 strikeouts, 4 walks, so good ratio there. The one guy, so Bobichet's still out, Jose Barrios is out, Ty France is also out for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now we're coming down to where these injuries are going to matter, because you don't have the guys. That Bobichette is one of them. You can't throw him out there, obviously. Ty Savage, they traded for, wasn't having the greatest of years, but I would rather having them up at the plate than some of the guys that they do have. George Springer is also day-to-day. I'm going to assume he's going to play. He's their leading home run guy this year. Seattle has everything going for them right now. If I were a betting man, let's see. Let me take a look at game 2 here. In game 2, Savage started, and it was Logan Gilbert who pitched. Logan Gilbert is one of the more well-known guys. Obviously wasn't the greatest this year. It was 25, games pitched, but he went 6-6 with a 3.4. Low ERA, 6-6 though. I would say probably Logan Gilbert is going to be in that position to probably start for the Mariners. He only went 3 innings, and then they started going to their bullpen already. But with LA in the World Series, and if Seattle wins this game, we have a West Coast kind of World Series. I think it's a little bit closer than what most people think, but I mean, the Dodgers have top to bottom the roster you want going into a World Series, especially trying to go back-to-back, right? So we'll see what happens with that. I'd like to see Seattle in there, simply because I thought the Cal Raleigh season was awesome. I thought the moves they made at the deadline really showed that they were going after it. Thought they haven't had an opportunity to win a World Series in a long, I don't think they've won one. So Toronto, I know, has won one, obviously, with Joe Carter being that hero, and I remember that stuff. But I'd like to see a new team win. I'm always for that when it's not my team, of course. But I think it is the more intriguing matchup. Yes, if Bo Bichette's going to be able to come back and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to be able to play the way we know he can play, yes, it's very much an intriguing matchup to see Toronto against the Dodgers. But, an all West Coast kind of, I think it's going to really dip the numbers here on the East Coast because people aren't going to want to stay up to watch it that late. Now, maybe they move them up, I don't know. But for the time being, that's where we're at kind of with the MLB playoffs. The NHL season started. The Bruins rattled off 3 straight wins, which everybody was surprised about. Now they've lost 2 straight. And we're starting to see the team that we expected them to be. Giving up, the first 3 games they were playing defense. The goaltenders were, Swayman was playing excellent. And, you were getting guys to score that I told you from the beginning was like, oh man, this guy's not going to be. But like Tanner Jeannot has 2 goals already, which is great. But I mean, it was the bad signing it was the offseason bad signing. David Pastrnak leads the team in points, obviously 6 for that. But early on in these, the Detroit Red Wings lead the Atlantic. The Carolina Hurricanes lead the Metropolitan. They're actually tied with the Washington Capitals. The Florida Panthers won 3 games to start off the year and then promptly lost, which is what I think I'm going to see the Bruins do when they play the Avalanche coming up either tonight or tomorrow. But the Florida Panthers, they have some injuries already to start off the season. On the Western Conference, you have Colorado 4-0-1, starting off very well, and then the Vegas Golden Knights won 3 games and have lost 2 games in overtime or a shootout, so they have 8 points to start off. So those are your leaders early on in the season. Looking at the early goal scoring leaders, skating leaders, Jack Eichel has 11 points to start off with, and then a very interesting goal leader right now for Ottawa in Shane Pinto. Shane Pinto, 24 years old, center, 6 goals in the first 5 games of the year. So he's your league leader in goals. Trying to see what he did last year. I mean, he's a pretty even at 57 and 57 in his career. So, I mean, he's an even as far as distributing and everything else like it, but he leads the league and he's tied with Pavel Dorofeyev. He's from Russia. So that's all I can tell you. But he's also got 6 goals. Goaltending, Calvin Pickard in Edmonton. Does Edmonton still have the same 2 guys? Let's see. Because this is going to be interesting to me. Yeah, same two dudes who lost you the last 2 Stanley Cups. Stuart Skinner 1-1-1 with a 1.97, and then Calvin Pickard 1-0 with a 1 goals against average. So they're splitting them. Stuart Skinner is still your guy, but Pickard is the leader right now, tied with Brandon Bussey, former Bruin, Igor Sikorskin from the Rangers. Jake Allen is right there. A save percentage is Charlie Lindgren, who has 1,100% save percentage so far. and he's played one game, and he had a shutout. Good for him. So NHL just started out, and then Wednesday night we have the NBA kind of tip off. We're still working on getting that episode ready to go for everybody. Hopefully we'll have by then. We'll probably have a few games under the belt, but you're going to see a Cooper Flag against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs as one of the opening games, which I think is a great opening game to see. I think people are starting to come around, but the Celtics aren't going to be as bad as they thought they were, especially with injuries. And then 150 days after the fact, Jason Tatum is jumping and dunking already. I truly believe if this team can get in as a 6 seed, they'll bring him back in because this East is so wide open. I think the teams you're going to have to watch out for are the Cleveland Cavaliers on the East. The Orlando Magic, I think, are going to be very good and be up there. But I think if you're not going to want to play the Celtics. And I think the roster they've put together and kind of the players they're going to be, Chris Bouchard is going to be probably your starting center. You're going to have a lot more Peyton Pritchard. Jaylen Brown hopefully is going to be healthy enough to get through the season without having to sit out. And then some of the guys that they have that we were kind of talking about as I look at their roster or their depth chart right now, Derek White, Anthony Simmons, obviously. Sam Hauser is going to have a lot more minutes. Hugo Gonzalez looked interesting. Josh Minot had looked really good for the Celtics as well. And then Xavier Tillman was a guy that hit the game-winning shot the other night. And again, is he going to be in those positions all the time coming up? No, but I think he's going to get a lot more minutes to show that stuff. The same thing with Luka Garza. I think Luka Garza played so well in college to be stuck at the end of the bench for the Minnesota Timberwolves for as long. I think they're going to get legitimate minutes. But that's kind of the preview of what I see around here and everything else like that. And again, we'll get more in depth with more teams and stuff like that as we kind of go along. I want to get a few more games and watch a few more games in the NHL before I start saying, hey, this team's the best team out there or whatever the case may be. But as of right now, these teams look okay, whatever. With that being said, we're going to see week 7 in the NFL. Myself, I'm going to be at a card show tomorrow here in Massachusetts, kind of going through some more cards and selling those and stuff like that. And we're still in the process of moving the studio here for Loftside Banter. I appreciate everybody's patience. And again, I thank everybody for their patience. And again, I'm working on getting a second host in here so there's a little bit more banter to it and everything else like that. But thank you, everybody, and we will see you for the next episode.